everyone. We're back at Lean Startup 2014, and I think you're in for a very enlightened conversation here with Jana Eggers. If you haven't been familiar with what they do, you'll learn about it, but most importantly, we're going to talk about Nara, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and data. Great to be with you.
Great, thank you.
So I just shared with you, I'm fascinated by what you guys do. You have a rare, very talented, small group of people who work at the intersection of data and artificial intelligence, and you do it really well, especially with some of the work that you do with Nara. For those who aren't familiar with it, explain what you guys do. Where are you now, and where are you heading?
So I think one of the most exciting aspects that I'll talk about is adding in neuroscience. So we definitely use techniques that have been proven and used in artificial intelligence, which is exciting, and lots of great works that go on there and on neural nets. And data is our specialty. We love data. The more we can get, the better, of all different types. And then our secret sauce is combining that with neuroscience. So we were inspired by, and many of our engineers come from MIT and specifically come from the neuroscience and cognition lab there. And so the neuroscience and what we've learned over the last few years in neuroscience is the new aspect, and it's how do we make, I'd say we're applying real intelligence to artificial intelligence. So it's really how our brain reacts to information and stores it and connects. And so that's what we're applying and trying to do that right now. What you've seen on Nara.me is we're doing that for restaurants and hotels. So it helps anyone get recommendations based on restaurants and hotels that they like, get recommendations for others. And so as we were talking about, something really unique is that if I know San Diego well and I go in and like some restaurants there, I can then fly across the country to New York and find restaurants that are similar to the ones that I like in San Diego, which is very unique. In addition to that, you can combine interests and likes. So if you and I want to go to dinner later, we could both share our Nara profiles with each other and then find restaurants that we would both like within a city. Nara.me and our mobile app are really an expression of our technology. And
a tiny one at that. I mean, it is.
It's a start.
Yeah.
We think it's pretty big and exciting, but it's definitely a start. And our technology and the folks we're working with, anything from financial services to e-commerce, and a bunch of areas where they have a lot of data and they're trying to come up with some better recommendations on how to react to that data. And so we're excited about the number of people that have reached out to us and said, I want to learn more about this, and can you help solve my problem? And we go into detail with them on, well, what's your problem? And let's talk about, is this a good one for the neuroscience and artificial intelligence space?
And I know you're here to talk about customer development, and we'll get to that in 1 minute, but I want to go back to Nara for a second, because it's fascinating what you do. We're at this tipping point of personalization everything. I mean, every app we use, every website we're on is almost going to be customized for us. Can you give us a glimpse of what search might look like? I don't want to say 3 years down the road, but next year, what could we expect when we get on either an app or on our computer to search for something?
I think that what we're seeing now in search, and it's not just us, there's other people that are working on it. We haven't found anyone that's doing what we're doing on the neuroscience based side, but people are trying to take more into account, and versus simple things like keyword matching, which is probably the most predominant and the one that's also most frustrating to people.
It is.
Is taking into account a lot more than just the keywords, the context that I'm in, the time of day you and I were talking about before. So there's a lot, which application I'm doing it from. There's a lot more that matters. And actually, it's funny that you bring this up in particular, because I talk about this a lot with the customer-centered development work that I do is you got to see what's happening around the product. And I think that's what we haven't done so much in search. What's happening here? What are those keywords that are happening? And we haven't looked at, well, what else is happening around there? And I think we're getting to the expectations of customers are changing and the consumers are changing, and the capabilities that we have are changing. So, did that help?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, you're telling me that search is almost going to be like discovering new things, right? So it's not, I search for Fairmont, San Francisco, and I get Fairmont and my typical, hey, here's some nearby hotels and so forth. You're actually, at some point very soon, going to be able to give me things very similar to the Fairmont, not just in the surrounding areas, but that's going to be customized for me.
Yeah, there's two things actually. One is getting you a better match when your search isn't so specific about the Fairmont, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking for hotels in general or a restaurant in general, but really using what we know about you to then give you a better recommendation just for you. But there is also that discovery aspect. So the discovery aspect is actually a little bit, it's like, okay, I know this about you, but I'm going to loosen some of those constraints and help you look for something that you normally wouldn't do. And so we do both of those things. So we have customers that we're working on that with, where sometimes they have customers that they really want to go and target exactly what would be right for them at that time, and sometimes they want to explore. So you can imagine, and we talked about movies earlier, you can imagine that sometimes when I sit down, I just want to get that, I'll date myself, Friends episode, right?
Don't date yourself. Hey, you look great.
Want to go back to, just that one specific thing, and I have 30 minutes and I want it now, and that's my brain candy, right? There's other times when I sit down and I do want to explore. I want to find something new. What else is going on? What is it out there that and so those are actually two different things that we look at and can work with our algorithm based on parameters that our customers give us for their customers.
How do you approach customer development in general? I know that at the heart of everything you do and what you're here to talk about is the importance of listening, but just from a broader context, how do you approach this whole issue, especially with such a radically different way to do what you guys do? Yeah,
so my journey in product management started a long time ago, and was really just sort of something that came natural to me because I was always curious about what was happening with the customer. So my first job out of research, I was a research scientist before this, but my first job out of research was with a logistics company. And it was a great group of nerds from Princeton and MIT. And we had 25 people, 9 of them had PhDs in logistics, and they had developed some really cool software. And when I joined the group, I liked going out and talking to customers, and I liked when they said, gosh, this recommendation doesn't fit us. We were doing decision support things, and we would give them recommendations for what they should do. And I would always say, well, tell me why, And I think a lot of the team was very focused on, no, I'm going to prove to you why it is the right thing. And so it was more of a natural inclination to me to start with the customer. So I tell you that story because that's where I started, and it's the heart of what I've always done, which is go to the customer and ask them why. Go to the customer and figure out what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish. And we definitely do that at Nara. I did it at Intuit as well, and founded the Corporate Innovation Lab there, and really worked. And I know you're talking to Hugh later, and you'll hear from him some of the amazing work. He and I were terrific partners there for that. But it's really figuring out what the customer is trying to accomplish and talking with them about it. Now, what I'm talking about tomorrow is how do you then listen? How do you hear what they're really saying?
Yeah, what are you listening for? So when you're listening, so you're talking to me about this new product that you got. What are you listening for in that process?
Yeah, part of the problem with product development is, and the way I describe this, and we're really leaking into my talk tomorrow, so that's fun, right? This is a little pregame on that. when you're going in with a product, you're so often singing a song in your head. That's how I say it. You've already got this song formatted. It is really hard to hear the song that the customer's singing. And what I say is, product people, your customer is singing "You're Killing Me Softly," and you're singing "We Are the Champions." And you can't hear what they're saying because you have that track playing in your mind, and everything they say you're using to reaffirm "We Are the Champions" in your head. And so what you really need to do is clear that out. And there's a bunch of different techniques that I'll go over for how to do it. One is literally before you go into a customer, take some time to take a breath, meditate if you know how to do that, but really make sure you're clearing out all of the things that you're thinking about. And when you go into that, you're not playing a song in your head. You're really there ready to listen to everything they say, even if it's something that's a different tune from what you were thinking.
And Jana, when they do sing that different tune, if it is the exact opposite, how do you approach it? I mean, do you obviously go into questioning mode where you're trying to find out why, or you're not trying to convince them why your song is the better song, but Absolutely. You want to find out why they want to listen to this other song? Absolutely.
That's the key, and you heard several examples this morning of things that failed. And most startups do fail, unfortunately, and I would say even more in the large companies, the projects fail. And I believe most often that's because we didn't figure out the product market fit. And you hear that a lot at this conference. That's exactly what you're trying to do, is what is that product market fit? So if you're so stuck on your product and you're not willing to figure out, well, what are the things that we're really good at versus how we express them in the product, then that's where you run into the problem. And so I always tell people to pull back, and it may be a different tune, but the strengths of what you do can apply to that tune. Right? And that's what you really have to figure out. It's like, okay, this feels really different and it's not what I was thinking, right? But what are the things that they're telling me that can leverage the strengths of the solution that I have? And we definitely have that at Nara. We've had some people come to us and say, will you solve this problem? And we've looked at it, and you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. We said, this isn't a problem that... there's something called dimension reduction, basically, that all of a sudden I get so pared down quickly on dimension reduction that there's not a lot of differentiation between the choices. I mentioned USB cables. With all due respect, again, to Monster and the great cables that they make, there's not a huge differentiation between USB cables. Versus clothing, I really care what I wear, right? And so there's a lot of differentiation and personalization, personal feelings that I have about what goes into that versus a USB cable. And so when you get into that dimension reduction problem, that's not a great fit for us. And we've had some people come to us and we look at the problem, and while it seems big and they have a lot of data, we realize that the decision that their customer is going through quickly reduces the dimensions, and then there's not a lot of differentiation. Sure. So that's an example of a place where it would be easy, because you have a customer coming in saying, I want your product, and it'd be really easy to go, okay, we'll just apply it there, and that's where you just let your song try and apply in too many places, rather than switching how you're thinking and really go into, well, what are they saying? Where am I going to be the strongest based on my technology?
Well, your team is fortunate, and I'll get to that in a minute, because they have you. I mean, it's the truth, right? You're the leader, and you come from that mentality, so you understand, and you understand everything that's going on here. Before we do that, I promised somebody I'd ask you this question. Are there certain questions that you always ask in that customer development process?
No, actually I don't. One of the things that we did, and this was a fantastic learning from Intuit. When I joined Intuit, one of the things Scott Cook, who's the founder of Intuit, said to me was, I'm concerned because I don't feel like we're learning as much as we could from our customer visits, and I want to figure out why. I think we used to do it better. And I said, you're Intuit. Of course you're doing it perfectly because you guys are geniuses. And I went on some of the customer visits, and one of the things I found out was teams were asking, a stack of questions. And so, and they were so worried about getting to all of those questions, it was really an in-person survey. It wasn't a customer visit. Sure. It wasn't something that was really about a dialogue.
Great insight.
So it's not necessarily the question that you ask, but the number. So we started saying, okay, you have 3 hours with the customer, you have 3 questions. And so when you go in, you can't go in with your stack of 95 questions. You have to go in with 3 questions. And so what happens then is you pull your questions up to a higher level, which allows you to delve deeper in each of those without that pre-formatted structure of, oh my gosh, I have to get through these questions. And you lead people too much when you're asking all those questions. So that's an example that gave people, rather than the exact question that you would ask, what you really do is just think about what are the 3 questions. I've got 3 hours with these people. What are the 3 questions that I'm going to ask? And what's going to help me answer all that I need to from those 3 questions? And don't go in with 3 questions and then actually you have the 25. Exactly.
10 other sub-questions.
It's like really you have to push yourself to think about, okay, what is this? And what are the questions that are going to help me ask why and ask the show me's, show me what's going on and really get that curiosity going about what they're really trying to do and accomplish.
So here's my last question. I say your team's lucky, and certainly they are because they have you, because you've gone all the way through this process. Now you're managing your team. One, what is a message to leaders of enterprise companies who don't do what Intuit does but should?
I think that the message is allow your teams to be curious. We focus so much, and we were talking about education earlier, and this is a belief I've had for a long time, that our education system trains us incorrectly. We really focus on getting to the right answer rather than exploring. And it's one of the reasons why I became a math major. I was sent to school to become an accountant. And accountants are rightfully very focused on getting the right answer. And what I loved about math is it's like, there is no really right answer. We thought this was the theorem, but we disproved that. And, it changes. And so it teaches you to explore more. And I was just more comfortable in that environment rather than the rigidity of this answer. And I think that what I'd say is encourage people to think more critically, encourage people to not just get data to prove. So many people think, well, we have the data, so that proves it. It's like, well, there's a lot of ways of looking at data. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. And so I'm not saying I'm very much an advocate of data, but I'm also an advocate of really understanding what data you have and making sure that you know where it comes from and what the implications really are about that data. So you need probably, I'd say, less data, but you need more structure in how you look at it and understand it. So it's that openness. I would say if I had to say one thing, inspire curiosity.
And that's pretty difficult to do. So my last question is, as the leader then, what are you listening for from your team? When your teams, all these project teams that you have come to you, everybody's got different ideas, they're working on different projects. What do you look, because they're your customers.
Yeah, I will tell you that one of the things that I very often found, and it changes depending on the culture and the organization, but I found in big companies more than small companies, people are tending to say, tell me, look, here's all the information, you decide, Jana, as the leader, right? Wherever I was and that. And when you say, what am I looking for? I'm always challenging my team. It's you do this work every day, you tell me. I'm happy to give you guidance from my experience. And if you're worried about CYA, I'm happy to say this was my decision, right? And if it fails, it's my fault. And if it succeeds, it's yours. But one of the things I'm looking for my teams is to really say, hey, this is what I truly believe. This is where my passion is about what we're doing, because I've looked at all the options, and while this may seem fuzzy, this is the right direction to go in. So that's what I'm looking for, is that thoughtful, critical analysis that people are going through, not the easy, not necessarily. It may be that the right answer now is the easy, safe answer. So it's not always about doing the big risky thing. It's really, I've gone through an analysis, I've done my critical thinking, and this is the direction that I'm recommending that we go. And again, I'll ask the hard questions and say, okay, I've seen this before, and here's what the challenge was with that. And the question is, have they thought about those things? It's not, well, I know and this is right and that's the way it happens. It's more, have you thought about that? How would that impact, that issue impact what your decision or recommendation is?
Well, everyone listening can get a glimpse of the amazing work that you guys do by just downloading Nara. Right? I mean, and just play. Just
Nara.
Nara. I mean, he's got his own website.
You can go to nara.me. And if you're interested in platform as a service, which is that ability to hook into what we're doing on the AI and neuroscience side, that's at naralogics.com. So that's the platform side. Nara.me is the fun expression of that technology side.
And they haven't scratched the surface.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.